But yeah, thank you very much for that. Okay, Larry, you've got your hand up.
Yeah. Hello. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I have some challenge.
Into the business. Let's get into the business of the day. We'll be talking about PRINCE2 today. And for PRINCE2, last week I told us that PRINCE2 has got 5 integrated, just like we spoke about PMI having three integrated elements. They've got the people, they've got the process, and they've got the business environment. For PMP, okay, for the PMBOK methodology or framework, you want to call it. While for PRINCE2 has got that 5 integrated elements. We've got what we call the people. Everything is all about the people. Everything we're talking about is about the people. Then we've got the processes that the people needs to go through. Then we've got the practices that we do on a daily basis, on a day-to-day basis. We've got our practices, and we have what we call the principles, and we now have what we call the project context. So we will be picking each of these rings one after the other to actually talk about it for the next 1 hour. All right, let's talk about the people. The people are the people. Is you and I working on the project, and in our presentation tonight, one word kept coming, which is stakeholders, communication, communication kept coming. That is what we're talking about when we're talking about people. The stakeholders, and this is where we will define who a stakeholder is. A stakeholder is someone who is directly involved with the work of a project or that can be affected both positively or negatively by the work that you're doing. Meaning, when you have a project, when you talk about stakeholders on your project, it is not just the people that are working on the project that are your stakeholders. You need to consider everyone that will be affected by the work of the project, whether positive way or whether negative way. These are all stakeholders. And in one of our classes, we will definitely be picking up stakeholders management as a course, okay, as a topic. We will talk about the people as a topic later on when we get there. So for these people, we said those working on the project, those affected by the project. Larry, your hand is still up. Do you want to bring it down, please? Okay, so those affected by the work, when you look at the ring on the bottom right, you can see that the first person we have there is a project manager. The project manager is that guy that is connecting everybody together. Is that guy that is expected. So you as a project management person, you are expected to connect everybody together. Okay, connecting everybody together, meaning you're working with the PMOs, you're working with the functional managers, you're working with your project team members, you're working with the governing bodies or your project sponsors, you're working with the suppliers and the users or the sellers and the customers. You are connecting everybody together. Communications will happen. These are everyone working on your project. And before you can work on this, there is something you need to consider as well. And when we get into stakeholders management topic, we will definitely drill down into this. I want to note on my project. Okay, let's pick up Deji as an example. And I think Deji is logging on as prep major tonight. Let's pick up Deji as an example on our project. Okay. On this particular training project, Deji is a key stakeholders. We can call Deji the sponsor of the project. Okay. Now we want to know what exactly is the power that Deji has got and what exactly is Deji's influence or interest on the project. Like we said, Deji is a sponsor. So Deji can wake up tomorrow and just say, you know what? This particular cohort, we're not doing anything anymore. We're shutting down. Deji can say we're shutting down. Okay. Don't forget, Olawumi cannot come and say we're shutting down. Miracle cannot come tomorrow and say we're shutting down because his power is not really that many or that much or that great on the project. So whenever you identify your stakeholders on the project, you have to do what we call the power, interest, greed analysis on them to say, okay, who these people I'm working with, what exactly is the power of this person? What exactly is the interest of this person? So you quickly want to do that analysis with your team on each one you've identified as our stakeholders on your project. And that is what we're talking about. You know what? The people. Prince 2 is people focused. Talking about how do you manage the people? How do you manage the people? When we're talking about managing people, is also conflict resolution, communications, okay, stakeholders analysis. That is exactly what we're talking when we talk about people focused. So you have to be people focused, and the people are the what we call your stakeholders on the project. Let's talk about the principles. For the principles, Prince 2 has got 7 principles, okay? For the 7 principles, Prince 2 says, you know what, the first thing you need to understand is you have to ensure continued business justification. It's a principle. What is a principle? Principle means things that are guiding what we are doing, okay? So Prince 2 is telling us, you know what, for us, the first thing you need to think about is ensured continued business justification. What are we talking about here? We want to do a project, and a typical example is a project is the Airbus A380. Okay, the Airbus A380 that is it Catherine now? That Catherine mentioned. That Catherine mentioned to us. Now, while the project was going on, okay, while the start of a project, you need to check. So there is a document we call the business case on project. Okay, business case is that particular document that is giving us the justification, the viability, or the feasibility of the project we want to do. That's the document that is convincing us that, you know what, this project is worth doing. That's the business case for us to say this project is worth doing. So we've prepared that document. While we've prepared that document, as a project is going on, we need to always go back to that particular document to actually see the project we're doing, is it still worth doing? Is there still a need for it? Okay. Is there still a need for it? Do we still need to do it? And all that. And that is what is called ensured continued business justification. So as a project manager, you want to make sure that you're ensuring that the project is still worth doing. The moment you see that the project is not worth doing, and what can make the project not worth doing anymore? Anybody? What are the things you think can make a project not worth doing anymore?
If you go over the budget.
If you go over the budget, you can go over the budget, but at the same time, maybe you've got contingency, or you've got or what you can say, you've gone over the budget, but there is no contingency plan for the project. So you can go over the budget, but there are contingency plan. Okay, so with that, your project can still they will give you more money to go spend and get your project done. Okay, Temi.
I was to say finance could also make you.
Yeah, which is a budget. Finance, which is a budget, or things are changing. There is no more money for that and all that. So yes. Okay, Onome.
Scope creep. So if they're not able to effectively manage any changes or allowances that come or spring up during the course of the project, I don't know if that's.
Yes, that can be an example as well. Okay, that can be an example as well. But I just you guys are overthinking. You're overthinking what could make a project not to. Guys, a business. Damisola, go ahead.
I'm not sure of this, but could it be that if a project is no longer viable or relevant?
Yes, so that is exactly what we're trying to determine here. What will make a project not to be viable? What are the things you think can make a project not to be viable anymore?
Policies.
Excellent. Policies can come. A change in political landscape can come. A typical example is Nigerian project and African projects and all that. Change in political landscape, policies can come, can make it not to be viable anymore. Like we said, sometimes finances, you know what, the company just doesn't have budget for that particular project. So with that, you know, when a project is managed poorly, yes, when a project is managed poorly, it can get shut down. Okay, so these are the things that can make a project not to be viable anymore. There is a particular example I always give, and I'll give this example again. And I think it's relevant now because it was last month that we had the eclipse of the moon. Again, we had the eclipse of the moon last month. Okay, so in 2006, thereabout 2005, eclipse of the moon happened in Nigeria. And in one particular village where I was then, I was in a particular town called Ogbomoso, and the eclipse of the moon was supposed to happen then. It was supposed to happen on a Friday. That was what the forecast said. That was going to happen on a Friday, and this particular guy had ordered some UV goggle for people to use. Is ordered that he wants to sell it on that Friday morning because the eclipse of the moon was supposed to happen around 11:30, 12. So his plan was on that particular field where everybody will gather, because we're all supposed to gather on a particular field to view that he will sell that from that morning. He will start selling it and all of that. But unfortunately, the forecast was wrong. Eclipse of the moon happened on the Thursday and not the Friday. Okay, so with that, you can see that his project is no more viable because of a change, or the change in timing, or the change in stuff. So those are the kind of things that can make a project not be viable anymore. But PRINCE2 is saying that as a project manager, please, as a principle, make sure you ensure continued justification on your project as you progress. Every single time, go back to your business case. And that is why when you look at the chart of PRINCE2 will always tell you reviewed business case, reviewed business case, reviewed business case. Business case should always get reviewed for us to see, is a project really worth it? Is it still worth it? Are we still going to realize that the benefit we said we'll realize and all that? That is what we call ensured continued business justification. The next thing that is a principle from PRINCE2, Tammy, your hand is up. Do you have a question? Okay. The next point to that is define roles, responsibilities, and relationships. Okay. Here, we're saying that, PRINCE2 has got that principle. Let us know who the project manager is. Let us know who the supplier is. Let us know who the risk manager is. Let us know. Let's have a clear roles and responsibilities so that Olum does not start doing what Catherine should be doing, or Catherine is doing what Adesola should be doing, or we're getting on the job and everybody is lost on what they should be doing. Okay. PRINCE2 is saying, let us, from the get-go, let us have a clear and defined roles and responsibilities, and also relationships. Who is relating with who is talking to who? Let us make sure that we have that written out. Okay. And when we're talking about these defined roles and responsibilities later on, we will be talking about a document that is called the RACI. I'm not sure you've heard the word RACI before. We'll be talking about RACI. RACI is RACI. RACI, where R stands for responsible, and A stands for accountable, C stands for consult, and I will explain that after, and I stand for inform. Okay. So we're saying that, let's have a clear RACI matrix. We call it RACI matrix. Sometimes we can call it RAM, responsibility assignment matrix. So is that we call it RAM or we call it RACI? RAM or RACI. Okay. And I'm sure that Damilare will be talking about RAM. This is not the risk assessment method now. This is responsibility assignment matrix. Okay. So in this particular RACI, what we're saying here is, let us have a clear and defined roles and responsibility. Who is responsible for this? Who is accountable for this? Who are we consulting for this? Who are we just informing for this? Okay. PM training, the PM// ADM training today. Who is responsible? Ayo is responsible. Who is accountable for it? Olawumi is accountable for it, because if it doesn't hold, you guys will go and meet Olawumi to say, Olawumi, why is it not holding? Who should we consult? We need to consult Deji on the timing and all of that. Who should we inform? We just need to inform Lady Pat. Does that make any sense? So you can see that on this particular project, we've got who is responsible, who is accountable, who should we consult, and who should we inform. So whenever you're on a project, you want to quickly get your racing matrix out. And when we get into detail part of all of these, when we move away from introduction and get into detail part, I will be sharing few documents with us. And you will also be developing some of these documents as well, just to get you on what we need to do. The next principle that we will talk about is we need to learn from experience. PRINCE2 says, you know what, learn from experience. You're not supposed to just get into a project and run it like it's never happened before. No, someone has done that before. Someone is an expert in this. Learn from experience. And that is why one of the first documents you want to build as a PMO person on a project or as a project manager, what the first document you want to look after is what is called the lessons learned log. Okay, you want to ask that, do you have a lessons learned log that we can learn what has happened on various projects in the past that are similar, so that we can learn from that? And also, as a project manager or as a PMO person, you also want to develop your own log so that you can start documenting the lessons you're learning. And one of the lessons you want to document is there was no lessons learned log on this particular organization in the past. That's a lessons learned log. That's a lessons learned. So there is nothing for us to fall back on to actually learn what has been happening. So you can see you're documenting your own lessons learned as well. So you have to make sure that you start documenting your lessons learned from the get-go of a project. Lessons learned needs to be documented. And that is why we're saying you need to learn from experience. Learn from experience, gather subject matter experts, learn from them. How have you done this in the past? How is it going? What do I need to do? How do I navigate these waters and all that? Okay. The next to that is we manage by stages. And this is where ADM is coming into play here. This is why agile delivery methodology is coming into play here. When we say we manage by stages, PRINCE2 is saying, you know what, you don't have to go through the project from start to finish without you putting some checkpoints. You need to put some checkpoint on your project. And that checkpoint is what we call the go, no-go decision. Okay? Or we call it, some people can call it kill point or checkpoint or go, no-go. And what are we talking about here? We're saying, you know what? I can split my project into stages. I can say when a project mandate is given, from the start of a project, when a project mandate is given, that is stage 0. When a project mandate is signed, then we're moving from stage 0 to stage 1. Okay. When I get to stage 1, what I'm trying to do here is I'm just trying to put caution on my project. So when a project mandate is signed, I can go back and say, okay, do we have all the things that is needed on this particular project in the mandate? A project mandate is a document that formalizes the start of a project, okay? That is a document that the project sponsor is giving to you as a project manager to say, yes, there is a project to be done. There is a project to be done. It's informing us that there is a project to be done. So when we have these, we can put a stage there to say, we need to make sure that we get this document. If we don't get this document, it's a no-go. The moment we get that document, it's a go. Okay, all you're doing is you're just managing by stages. So we can say, okay, we finished our planning, just like we said the chapter 2 that we read today. The chapter 2 we read today said the heart of planning a project. So we can say, and someone says something, I can't remember who said that, when the person said project planning or project plan is different from project schedule. Okay, I'm not sure who said that. A lot of people
It was me.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Onome. A lot of people will always misrepresent that. But quickly, let me, while I was saying that, if you're in the UK will always call a project schedule a project plan. Okay? UK would always call a project schedule. So in your organization, on your project, you always hear project plan, project plan, project plan. What they are talking about there is project schedule that you read in that particular book. If you get to the US or you get to Canada, they will always call it project schedule and not project plan. Project plan means something entirely different to them when you say project plan. Okay? If you're a planner, as well, or a scheduler, you always call it project schedule. Even in the UK, you call it a schedule and not a plan. Because a plan to a scheduler means entirely something different. But for the sake of this particular training, I will always be interchanging project plan with project schedule. I'm talking about the same thing. What I'm talking about is the project schedule. Okay, so let's quickly make that clear now. So I can say that by the time we finish our project plan, and we want to baseline it to say, yes, this is now what we will be benchmarking our successes against, our work against. At that point, we can say, let's put a stage there. Okay, we can't just go ahead. We put a stage there. We run that plan through every key stakeholders on the project. And if all the key stakeholders are happy with the plan, we can say, yes, let us go ahead to now execute the plan. Okay, that is what we're saying we're managing by stages. Because if we are not managing by stages, the moment we develop the plan, we can just go ahead and start executing. But we said no, just to be on the safe side, just to be sure that we are capturing everybody's interest. Let's put a gate there. We'll put a gate there, or a stage. We can call it a gate or a stage. We put a gate there. Then we consult everybody to say, this is what we have. That's what we are. These are the criteria for us to move from that stage to the other. Are we all happy? The moment everybody is happy, then that is a go. The moment nobody is happy, that is what is called no-go. Okay, it's called a go or no-go decision when you manage by stages. So what you're trying to look for is a go decision and not a no-go. So you have to make sure you do everything possible to get a go decision, because that is what will make you continue or proceed in the execution of a project. All right. The next point, the next principles that PRINCE2, or the next principle that PRINCE2 spoke about, is manage by exception. Managing by exception is saying that, guys, we know that as a project manager, you can always come to us, you can always manage this project, but you don't have the total authority to issue out money, to make changes, to do all of that. Just like it was, I'm not sure who spoke about scope creep, not you making changes without following proper changes to the scope, without following proper process. Now, let's quickly talk about that as well. When it talks managed by exception, we can say that, you know what, if your project, we can make that rule, we can have that decision right from the beginning of a project when we're writing our strategy to say, if a project is slipping by just 5 days, which is 1 week, the project manager doesn't need to get approval from the sponsor. Okay, the project manager should be able to manage that. We're saying that, you know what, if the budget, if the cost of work to be done is £50,000, okay, the project manager can approve that. But anything that is above £50,000, it needs to come to the project board to get approval. Anything that is any task that is slipping by more than 1 week, the project manager needs to come to the project board to get approval. Does that make it? So you can see that instead of putting a blanket in there to say, you know what, any changes at all must come to the project board. Any budget at all must come to the project board. We're making an exception to say, if it's £50,000, the project manager can approve. If it's 1 week, the project manager can approve. So that is what we're saying, you manage by exception. That will help the project to flow better. when you create exceptions on the project. But that doesn't mean everything should be all by exception. But when you're writing your strategy, you can create an exception so that because sometimes the project board are senior folks, you don't get them all together. On my own project, we only meet the project board once a month. You can imagine if after we met the project board on the 30th of, we met the project board today, for example, and we now have a huge change in the next 2 days, or a tiny change in the next 2 days, that's just 1 week. Are we going to wait for another 29 days before we see the project board? You get, so with that, we've got an exception to say, you know what, project manager can do that, or another managed by exception to say, when we have something that is very, very critical, we can send an email to all the project board members, please accommodate it, contribute to the conversation so that we can get approval. So we don't have to wait till the last day of the month before we can sit as a board. We can manage by exception by saying we can give email approvals. So you can see there are various exceptions you can have on your project. PRINCE2 made allowance for that. Next to that is we need to focus on products. Okay, and Onome, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, Ayo. I just wanted to ask, like, what's a reasonable and unreasonable exception? Like, who gets to define what? Is it just the project manager that gets to define, okay, this is reasonable enough, or is that a group effort?
No, it has to be defined by the people that are making the decision, which is the project board. Okay, so the project board will definitely be the one to make those exceptions for the project manager. The project manager can advise, the project manager can suggest, but it's still dependent on the project board to say, 50,000 pounds, do we really want to allow the project manager to do that? No, let's drop it to 5,000 pounds.
Okay.
Yeah, so the project manager can suggest, but it's left to the project board or the steering committee, depending on what you're using within your organization, to make that decision.
Okay, and one last question. At what point, I don't know if you said this, apologies if you did, but at what points do you do this managing by exception? Is it when you're planning the scope?
You do it across, you do it from start to finish of the project.
Start to finish, okay.
As they come, you start making it, but for the scope, the cost, and the time, I always advise we do that at the start of the project when we're doing our strategy documentation.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. So focus on the product. PRINCE2 said, you know what, we need to focus on the product. The product is what we need to deliver. So let's focus on it. Every other distraction, I know that we need to remove it, but we need to make sure our eyes is on what needs to be delivered. The quality of the job that needs to be delivered, the quality of the product that needs to be delivered is what we need to focus on. And the last one, which is not really a principle, but the way of life for PRINCE2 is called tailor to suit the project. Okay, everything I've said, all the 6 principles I've spoken about, all the practices we'll be talking about, all the processes we'll be talking about, is all about us tailoring it to suit the project. Tailoring it to suit the project, whether it is construction project, whether it is IT project, whether it's a change transformation project or finance transformation project, you can tailor PRINCE2 to any of that. Okay, that is what the principle is, to say, you know what, just make sure you tailor it. Tailoring it, what we're talking about when we're talking about tailoring is, if you have an IT transformation project, we want to deploy Salesforce, you might be using all the templates, all the principles, all the practices and all that. But let's assume all you want to do is just to deliver an event, just want to deliver a birthday party. You can't use all the principles, all the documentation you will use in delivering Salesforce project for event. You have to tailor whatever is needed within PRINCE2 to what you're doing for that event. Okay, that is what we're saying, that tailor it to suit the project that you're working on. But it's not rigid. It's not rigid to say, you know what, because we have 50 documentations to do, therefore your events too must do 50 documentations. No, you must tailor it to suit whatever you're doing at that point in time. Any question on the principles? Go ahead, Onome. Your hand is raised.
So sorry, that last point, I'm afraid it just flew over my head. What exactly are we tailoring? Is it the documents?
Yeah, you're tailoring all the processes, all the
Processes.
practices, and all the principles we've spoken about.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so like what we're saying, your project, your event project might not be able to manage by stages, okay?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you say, oh, because Prince2 said we must manage by stages, so we have to manage by stages. No, we have to put in stages. Do you
So
get?
essentially everything we've talked about,
Yes.
like an underlying thing is that you need to tailor all these things we've talked about to each
Suits.
individual project.
Yes, to individual projects, correct.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
All right, Miracle.
Okay, just a quick one. Just a question,
Right.
because it got me confused. So, what makes up the project board? Is it the project manager with the stakeholders?
When we get into establishing governance, I only just mentioned that when we get into establishing project governance, we will definitely establish a project governance, and I'll tell you what comprise of a project board, who should be on the project board, who should be on the steering committee, who should be on your project team lead or your project leadership team, and all that. Okay, we will get there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so just in case I won't forget, really, I won't forget governance, because governance is key in project management, so I'm not going to forget. Onome, your hand is still raised.
Yeah, so sorry.
That's all right.
To draw us back a bit, when
Okay.
you focus on products,
Yes.
is that the outputs or the
Yeah, that's the outcome, output, or results, anyhow you want to put it.
deliverables and all those things?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Welcome. Okay. All right, let's go to the next, which is called the practices. The practices are what I love most, because that is where we will be spending most of our time, really, for the practices. Okay, so for the practices as well, we've got 7 practices. And the first practice that we will talk about is called the business case. Okay. And I've spent enough time talking about business case already. Business case is that document that justifies, that talks about visibility of the viability of the work that we're doing. So let me throw this question out. Who develops a business case?
Is it not the project manager?
The project manager?
Yeah.
The stakeholders.
Okay, stakeholders. Okay, so we've got 2 answers on the board: project manager and stakeholders. Okay. Who else? Who else has got a different?
Analyst.
A business analyst. That's answer number 3.
I think it's
Product
the
owner.
combination.
Sorry?
I said product owner.
A product owner.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
it's a combination of the stakeholders and the project, the business analyst,
Okay.
and the PM.
Okay. All right. Olufunke has got a hand raised. If you're speaking, you're mute. Okay, she's dropped her hand. Okay. Who else? Any other opinion? So it's a very, very funny question, really, because it's all dependent on the organization, okay, that you're working with. I've worked in an organization before where we had to bring in a consultant because it was a 160 million pounds project. So we had to bring in a consultant to develop the business case for us. We had to bring in KPMG to develop the business case for us because it was a massive project. I worked in an organization also before where we had to use a business finance partner, a BFP, to write the business case. And I've worked in an organization before where the PM was saddled with the responsibility of developing the business case. And he had to work, just like someone said, working with the BA. He had to work with the BA and also with the finance analyst on the project to do that. So it's all dependent on the organization you're working on to do that. But the management of that business case, okay, is rest on the shoulder of the project manager to be checking whether the project is still viable. Remember that one of the first principles we spoke about is what? Ensured continuous business justification. So the project manager has got the responsibility to always make sure that he's working with whoever developed the business case or whoever is managing the business case to be sure that, we are still on course to deliver what the business case has asked us to deliver. Okay, so different organizations with different people that should develop the business case. But PRINCE2 has got that sole responsibility on the project manager. Okay, PRINCE2 will tell you that. So if you're writing your exam and all of that, say who should develop a business case, PRINCE2 has got that responsibility on the project manager. Okay, and for some of us that wants to write PMP and all that, you will see that in PMP, business case will only be mentioned once because PMP believed that it is not the responsibility of a project manager to develop a business case. And the only time you will hear that is when you're talking about the input to project charter. They believe that the input to project charter is just a business case saying the project is viable, then let's write a project charter. Let's give it to the project manager. Project charter is another word for project mandate. So PRINCE2 spoke about project mandate. PMP spoke about project charter. So same thing, but different naming for things, okay? So I think that is clear enough about business case. Business case is that document that tells us the viability, feasibility, and the justification of the project we're about to embark upon. And different person is responsible dependent on the organization you find yourself. But PRINCE2 has got that sole responsibility on a project manager to develop. Make sense? Any question? Clear. All right. Next practice is, and you can see that while we're saying that practice, while the word practice is coming up, this is what you would do from start to finish in an organization. Okay. Next to that is organizing. Organizing, what I'm doing now is summary, guys. What I'm doing now is summary because I still have a slide. So you can see on my slide from what we spoke about. I'll still spend enough time talking about the business case. Like you can see, this is a business case. What are the things that you need to look after in the business case? We'll still talk about all of that. So what I'm doing at the moment is just summary. So by the time we get here, my job will be done because I'm going into more detail already. Where are we? We are in practices. Okay. So we've got organization, and organizing is organization. And this is where we'll talk about governance. Okay, we'll talk about governance here. We'll talk about how an organization is set up within PRINCE2 or within a project. Within a project, how an organization is set up from the team to the team lead, from the team lead to the project manager, from the project manager to the support, from the support to the project sponsor, and all that. How an organization is set up, how governance is set up. Because governance is one of the key things, like I said, is one of the key things that a project manager or a PMO, when you look at roles and responsibility on JobServe, Indeed.co.uk, or CV library and all that, you will always see that one of the things they will put in there is be able to set up governance, be able to set up governance on project and all that. So you're coming in to set up how the governance of the project will be, who is reporting to who, what meetings should be done, how many meetings should we be doing, what meeting fits into what meeting, what reports fit into what particular meeting. So as a project manager, as a project management office person, these are things you'll be expected to come into an organization to set up on the project. You will need to set that up. You will need to talk to us about the terms of reference of the meetings. How are the meetings supposed to run? Weekly, fortnightly, once a month, and all that. You need to state all of that, and that needs to be very, very clear to everybody working on the project. Let me check out something. If I have a desktop CG meeting governance. No, that's not what I'm looking for. So I'm just looking for a sample of a meeting governance. No, I can't find one. I'll get one ready for next week. That's fine. When we go into more detail, I can't find one. Okay, so we've got that. We need to organize a team. We need to organize meetings. We need to organize, and if you're a project manager and you've got a PMO working with you, it's the headache of the PMO to get all of this sorted for you. Okay, it's the headache of the PMO to make sure that all of that is sorted for you. And also next to that is plans. Okay, plans, like I said, the plans is you having all your plans. You having your risk management plan, you having your issue management plan, you having your schedule, your detailed end-to-end plan, whether it is a plan on a page, whether it is a plan in MS Project, whether it is a plan in Excel spreadsheet, whether it's a plan in PowerPoint. You must have a plan. You must develop a plan, just like we read about the heart of planning a project on our chapter 2. You must have a plan. You must have a serious plan. Like what, I'm not sure who said that she loves how every of those pages started with a quote. A good plan today is better than a perfect plan tomorrow. Okay, so we're saying that you must have a plan. You must have a plan. Another thing that PRINCE2 spoke about is quality. Don't forget, I'm trying to get you into the mood of PRINCE2, but I'm not teaching you any exam. This is no exam. You can't even use what I'm talking about. You can still use it to write your exam, but this is not a detailed knowledge you need for exams. So that's why I'm brushing through it based on knowledge. It's just for FYI at the moment. When we get into detailed information, that's when you will understand how applicable these are on the job. Okay. Then we talk about risk. We talk about quality. Quality. You need your quality criteria. What do we need to have before a project can be acceptable? What are the things we need before a project can be acceptable or sign off or close out? We need to understand what exactly is the acceptance criteria. That is when we're talking about quality. Quality in project management, we'll talk about fitness for use or conformance requirement. Have we conformed to all the requirements from the sponsor? If the response is a yes, then we can say the quality of the project is good. Is it fit for use? For the intended use of that particular project? If the response is yes, then we can say the quality is great. Okay, so here we have our acceptance criteria. We have our exit criteria as well to say, okay, yes, this is your acceptance criteria based on what we said we will do, and that's the quality of the work to be done. Next is called risk. We've got risk. Risk is anything that could go wrong on a project. And this is very, very critical on a project. As a project manager or a PMO person, this is your baby throughout the project. You should be able to identify risk on the project. You should be able to document the risk on the project. You should be able to analyze all the risk and provide a mitigation action for that particular risk. As a PMO person, don't forget, or as a PM, don't forget, I once said You don't have to be technically inclined. So how do I now understand the risk involved on a project, or how do I identify the risk? That is why you need to make use of your team members to sit down and brainstorm on what could go wrong on this particular project. What could go wrong? Why do you think things will go wrong? What exactly is the probability of it that it will go wrong? What exactly is the impact if it should go wrong? How do we attack it to make sure that this doesn't go wrong? So these are the questions you are asking the subject matter expert or the expert on that particular project. These are the questions as a PM or as a PMO person you expect to ask them these questions, document it, and make sure that the log is getting reviewed on a daily basis. Okay? And after that, same thing goes with your issue. Any risk that has happened, if a risk is documented and that risk has now materialized, this is what we call issue on the project. So a materialized risk is what is called an issue. That means an issue has happened. Okay. And next to that, as a practices, and that's why we'll say practices mean on a daily basis on a project. These are 7 things you are expected to be sleeping and waking up with every single day on a project. You're expected to be looking at your business case on a daily basis. You're expected to be organizing your team on a daily basis to say who is reporting to who is talking to who, and all of that. You're expected to be looking at your plan after you've developed a plan, follow through with a plan that you've developed, follow through with a schedule that you've developed. Quality, are you delivering conforming to requirement or fitness for use? The risk will always happen. Risk will always get identified on the project. You're making sure that they are not happening on a day-to-day basis. Issues. On your issues as well, you want to make sure that your issues are being managed properly to be able to make sure that they are eliminated, and also what we call progress. You have to make sure you measure progress. What are we doing? As at today, what did we say we will have done? Have we done what we say we will do? And all that. That is what is called progress. You have to measure your progress on a daily basis. How are we doing regarding cost, regarding quality, regarding scope, regarding schedule? How are we doing? What do we need to do? And you need to make sure that you report your progress. So you have to set up a meeting to report progress. You're reporting progress within your team. You're reporting progress to the project board or to the steering committee and all that. So those are the things you need to set up in your organization to see how you report your progress. Any question on practices for now? Okay, so for practices, like we said, you've got that initiation, where's that? You've got you initiate your project, you plan your project, you execute your project, and you close out your project. And while you're doing all of these, you're monitoring and controlling your project, because this is everything. So those 7 things we spoke about are things you're doing from initiation to planning to executing to closing out, and while you're monitoring and controlling everything. Then let's go to the process. Process is the one that is very funny. Process is quite funny. In process, we've got 7 processes as well. Okay. And the 7 processes are what we have in pink. Is start up a project. First and foremost, you need to initiate a project. You're starting up a project. Starting up a project is the first thing you need to do. This is where you get your project mandate. You get your project mandate when you start up a project. And next thing to that is you initiate a project. Okay. You start up a project. Where's my pointer? There's my pointer. You start up a project. So the one I showed you earlier, these that I showed you earlier is just the normal process you go through on a daily basis, on a daily life basis. You initiate a project. After you initiate a project, the next thing you do is you plan it. After planning, then you execute. After execution, then you close out. But while you're doing all of that, you're monitoring and controlling. But PRINCE2 says, you know what? We need to put some housekeeping into that. Okay. Starting up a project. Starting up a project is when you have a project mandate. You have your project mandate from the sponsor to say, you know what, you have Olufunke. You have Olufunke. You're the project manager. They give you a project mandate to say you're the project manager. Then after they've given you that, that is what we call starting up a project. Next to that is you now start initiating the project. So when we get into detail level, we'll be talking about what are the things that are inside all of that. So give me 1 second, please. All right, so we've got initiate a project. While you're initiating the project, then your project sponsor, everybody sits here that says they are directing the project, and yourself as a project manager as well, you sit on top of that to direct the project to see what exactly is happening there. Give me 1 second. Let me check my next slide. Okay, let me use this particular one. I think this one will explain things better. So you can see when you're starting up a project, you've gotten your project mandate, you have to do a kind of outline business case, you write your project brief, and also you start organizing the structure of what you want to use on the project. Okay, that's when you're starting up a project. Then from there, you now start directing the project that is at the top level, because don't forget, one of the principles we spoke about is manage by stages. I understand it's getting confusing. Don't worry, when we pick up a project, we'll pick up a project next week, and we'll start using that project. We just start simulating things and start working through how it is from start to finish. Okay, so with that direct a project here, we say, do we have a project? When we say yes, we have a project. We have a project to deliver. We've got an application to build, an application that people can go in and buy clothing, buy things and all that. That is the application. Yes, we've got a project. That is what the mandate says. We've developed the business case, the outline business case. The project is really viable. Because the project is viable, we've developed a project brief just to understand what exactly we need to do on that particular project. Yes, we understand that we need to work with A, B, C, D people and all that. So we have all of that penciled down. Then we can take it to the project board to say, project board, we've got a project. This is our outline business case to show that, the project is viable. This is a project brief to give you more understanding of the project, the risk involved, the timeline that we will use to get the project done. We've got our project brief. Next to that is we've got an organization. We know people that we're working with and all that. Then do we have a project? Those particular guys says the project board, who was sitting at the top of that, says, yes, we have a project. We'll sign it off. You can now initiate the project. Yes, you can go ahead and do the project. When they tell you you can go ahead and do the project, then you get authorization. That's what I just said, authorization to start the project, to initiate the project. Then we go to initiating the project. When we go to initiating the project, this is now where we are now doing a proper documentation that is called the PID, the Project Information Initiation Document, which is called the PID. In PRINCE2 methodology, in PMBOK methodology for PMP, this is what they call the Project Management Plan. Okay, that's a huge document. And that was what I was telling you earlier, to say here in the UK, we don't talk about project plan, project schedule. We can interchange project plan and project schedule in the UK, but when you get to the US or Canada, you can't do that, because by the time you say project plan, they are thinking of that, they're telling you that, what you're developing is a project management plan, just like a PID. It's a document that you're developing that has got all your risk management plan, your schedule management plan, your cost management plan, your HR management plan, your issue management plan, your procurement management plan. It's got all of those documentation into that is not called the project plan. Okay, but when you're using PRINCE2, we call it the PID, the project initiation document. This is where you have all your strategies in there. Okay, so when you have that, when you have your initiator project, you've initiated a project, you've developed the PID, we now say, you know what, manage a stage boundary, which is another principle that we spoke about when we talk about manage by stages. You're now having different boundaries that you're putting on your project to say, before you move from this stage to that stage, you need what we call a go, no-go decision. You need an exit criteria that is telling us that, yes, you can go. So when you initiate a project, you go into the manage stage boundary, you do your go, no go. Should we go, should we not go? You're saying that, yes, let's go. When you say, yes, let's go, then you have a stage authorization, which is a yes, let's go, which is a stage authorization. Then you check whether everything you're doing is correct. That's what we call controlling a stage. Are we doing the right thing? Is this what the requirement that the BA, the business analyst, documented? All the things that the business analyst documented, are we doing it right? Are we doing according to plan? Then that's what we say. Don't forget, that's what we said, the heart of a day-to-day project management. Are we doing it according to what is written in that particular business requirement document, or functional or non-functional document? If it's a yes, and we're doing it well, then let's manage how the product is getting delivered. Then we manage stage boundary. After that, we can manage the boundary if we have just 2 stages that we've put in our project, 3 stages, 4 stages, 5 stages, just keep repeating until the project is done and you can get your final authorization stage, and you can then close out your project. Okay, so all of this is just a one goal to say, first and foremost, start up a project. When you start up a project, get approval. When you get approval, you initiate the project. When you initiate the project, you do the work that needs to be done. When you do the work that needs to be done, you control it to be sure that things are getting done properly. If things are getting done properly, then you close out the project. And that's it. Okay? Any question from anybody? Sorry, I've gone 2 minutes past the time tonight. Any question from anybody?
Yeah, so I don't know if you can talk about the link between this managing a state boundary and controlling the stage. I think I missed out on that.
Managing a stage boundary?
Yeah, the link between them.
Okay, and what? And controlling.
Controlling the stage.
So there is the link between them is you going back to get approval. So you can see that managing a stage boundary, you're getting go, no go decision. If it's a go, then you do the work. Okay, so if it's a go, you come here, you get the approval to say yes, continue to do the work. Okay, then let's take this training for example. If I go and meet Deji to say, oh Deji, based on the training today, do you think we should still go ahead to do the training? Because Deji is the guy here. Deji is the guy that is directing the project. And I say, oh Deji, should we still go ahead with the training based on what we've done today and all that? Deji says, yes, go ahead. Then I'll go ahead with the training. I'll go ahead with the work, right? If Deji says no, you know what? There's no point doing anything. I don't need to go there. So there's no direct link with managing a stage boundary and controlling it. No, you go from managing, you go and get approval. The moment you get approval, you do the work. Okay, when you do the work, you check whether what you're doing is right, which is a product. When you check what you're doing is right, you know what? You go back and tell them that, yeah, I've done this. They give you approval to go to the next stage. You come to the next, you control, you come to the next stage. You check the product that is being done. If the product is fine and everything is okay, you close your project. Does that make any sense?
So if I could get you right, this after you confirm from the board of directors, you go to the controlling stage. Then even after the managing product delivery, you confirm about that, you still go back to the controlling stage too.
Yes. So why the iterative is there is you confirm the managing product that is not really that you saw defect. If you see defect, what do? You do the work again.
Okay.
You don't have to go to them before you can determine defect yourself.
Okay.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's why you see it's more like iterative here. You control, you manage product, you go back, you come back, you go back, you go back. It is when you can see that yes, the work is perfect, you go get approval, then you come down again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Any questions from anybody tonight? I know I've taken your time. Apologies for that. I always love to finish on the dot of 11. All right, Olufunke, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know whether this is I don't know how it will sound, but I just want to understand what a project, what are we talking about as a project? What can a project really mean be? As in, can it be an event or maybe you are can it be an event in any ramification? As in, I don't really understand what a project is all about. Does it have to always be about a construction or about whatever? Can it just be anything?
Yes. Don't forget that when I started this particular training, or when I did the introduction and also last week, I said everything we do is about project. It's all dependent on how you're putting it. Okay, everything, and that's why I said this, and that's why I've been using this training, which we are all involved in as a project as well. This training is a project.
Okay. Yeah.
You get. I just delivered a 60th birthday event, a 4-day birthday, a 4-day event of a 60th birthday last week from Friday to Monday. I just delivered that, and all I did was just to use my project management knowledge. And I could remember the guy that came to do decor was saying, you know what, I don't want a project manager here. No, I walk away. You're disturbing me. You're not making me do my job properly. I say yes, because I'm here to do what I call the controlling stage. We're doing the work, but while you're doing the work, I need to make sure that it is in line with what we both agreed from the start of the job.
All right. Okay. And sorry, Ayo. The reason why I'm asking is because, like in my church, I am like the event planner. I plan all the events that we do in church.
Okay.
So all the things that you've been saying about project manager, I keep seeing myself in most of the things that you're talking about. So that's why I'm asking. And I remember that last week when you were asking us, have you done anything about project management? I said no. But from everything that you've been saying now, I could relate a lot with all the things that I have been doing. So at least it's making more sense. Thank you.
Absolutely. Very correct. Yeah. Everything we do in life, even you waking up in the morning to go to work, it's a project. Okay? It's now depending on how you're putting it. Okay? Excellent. Any other question tonight?
Yeah, thank you.
2 minutes and we'll shut down. Anything else from anybody? All right, we can stop recording now.